Good morning, good afternoon, and for those of you across the pond, good evening, and welcome to yet another Nonprofit Hub webinar. I'm Randy Hawthorne, the executive editor here, and today I have with me Peter Ross, and we're going to talk about that thing that's been on people's minds for about 6 months now, COVID-19, and how we can market better as a nonprofit organization. So how are you today, Peter?
I'm well, thanks, Randy. How are you?
I'm doing great. You're on the East Coast, right?
I am, yeah. So I have about 80 people here in Boston, or like I used to have them in Boston. I can actually show you. I think everyone can see my screen. So I used to have this like really nice office downtown, and we had like 10,000 square feet in Back Bay, and then COVID hit. So if no one's in the office, I'm coming to you direct from my kitchen right now. And so what I've done, and this may be a little aggressive, but I basically let our colleagues know that they don't have to like come back to the office for the next year. And so people have moved to Maine, they moved back in with parents, some of them like are road tripping it, with a laptop and, a hotspot. And what's interesting is that we're actually getting a lot more work actually done. So our director of SEO, for example, he lives in Rhode Island. The gentleman commutes up 2 hours each way. He's never been happier working from home. I used to think that we could never like have the same sort of like camaraderie and culture and community, and we would never work remote. And as in many things, I'm clearly just wrong. So we're okay. Yeah, we're doing well. Apart from me still having to pay rent, I'm still happy.
Well, it's a beautiful building, so.
Yeah, if you want any of it, Randy, I can talk to you about the sublease. No, we actually had an opportunity to get out of the building entirely. So Northeastern just bought the building back in Q1. And when COVID hit, they ended up renting the Hilton Hotel, like all of it in downtown Boston, for like COVID overflow for classrooms, things like that. And so they came to us and they were like, hey, can you get out your lease? We'll pay you out, we'll get out the lease. But it's so hard to find space in Boston that's like really nice. So like it used to be an opera hall, our office. And so we have like 40-foot ceilings, like it's gorgeous. And so, and realtors, if there are any realtors here or any family members, my mother's a realtor, but commercial realtors perturb me a little bit. So like once I have a place and it's mine, I'm gonna just stay put.
Well, great. Well, let's jump into the content.
Wonderful, awesome. Everybody, I know this has been on everyone's mind regarding like how to best to market during COVID. It's something that all of our clients are dealing with. We have a bunch of nonprofit clients, a bunch of for-profit clients, and generally we've noticed a couple trends in COVID. Most notably, there was less dollars to go around, right? And when you think about advertising, you think about, building awareness for your organization. A lot of people go to the paid types, whether it's print or radio, or most often Google Ads or Facebook. Whether you're boosting a post or running remarketing ads, those cost money. And so with organizations being cash strapped, what I'd like to spend some time talking about today is actually what we refer to as an evergreen strategy, a strategy that exists regardless of what is going on in the market, and is generally like a pretty good investment across the board. I will say though, just because we are non-profit focused here, if anyone is not yet aware of the Google Grants program, so it's as simple as google.com/grants, and don't worry about the links or anything. I have all the materials we're gonna review today in a beautiful like little spreadsheet. So if you'd like access to anything I'm gonna mention today, or you can't remember the name of the company or the service, just let me know and I'll find it for you, no big deal. But google.com/grants is a good COVID strategy from a marketing perspective, because if you're a 501c3, they provide you with $10,000 worth of advertising on the Google Ads network. So if you think Google advertising, think best nonprofits to donate to. So really what we're talking about is this. So the ads that appear at the top of the screen, if that makes sense. This budget has restrictions on it. There's a CPC restriction. There are some like frequency capping restrictions. But if you don't have that $120,000 in your budget and you're not spending at least a portion of it on Google Ads, think about it. But today I don't want to spend so much time on Google Ads or Facebook or remarketing or programmatic, or all the ways our nonprofits usually build awareness or increase their donor base, or get attendees for their big annual galas. I'd like to focus today on strategies that you can do more or less for free with your own team, most of which that you do not need technical talent for. So if you're in a situation where it's just you, leading marketing, or if you're running an organization that has a marketing wing, these are things that you can direct them to spend their time and energies on that will have value down the road. Before I jump into that, I want to just run through. I was telling this earlier to Randy, just a little quibble I have with marketing agencies in general. And what we're finding is that COVID is lifting a lot of the, I think in good markets, agencies could skate by, and in less prosperous markets, there's more attention paid. There's an example of a nonprofit that we are now working with that was retaining an agency who was placing all of their advertising spend. So to put it in context, the nonprofit would hand over their advertising spend and a retainer to an agency. They would spend it on the nonprofit's behalf. We go back and we actually take a look at where the money was spent, and we realize that the client doesn't have access to their Google Analytics, doesn't have access to their ad accounts, isn't being billed directly, so they can't quantifiably know whether or not the money was spent. And in this particular case, there's a couple $100,000 that poof, weren't actually spent, were pocketed. So just some basic mistakes, we're gonna be looking a little bit at Google Analytics today. We're gonna be looking a little bit at third-party services, just for your own sense of security. Make sure that if you're retaining an agency or even your own marketing department, make sure that you have a single source of truth for your ROI. When we think about this as with our business clients, there's usually 4 KPIs we obsess on. What does it cost to drive one new visitor? What is the rate that visitors turn into inquiries or leads? What is the rate at which leads turn into sales? And what's the lifetime value of one new sale? With nonprofits, we don't always have leads. We don't always have sales. And so sometimes, if you're the New York Stem Cell Foundation, or if you're Oxfam, each of these organizations will have different KPIs with us based on what it is they're looking to achieve. For me, at least, everything that we talk about today needs to be grounded in what are your key performing indicators. I sometimes think too much data isn't a good thing. And if you don't have time for this, or you're managing a marketing department, or you're a marketing director with a staff, or you're by yourself, don't get flooded by the data. Stick to 3 or 4 key pieces of measurement and use those throughout. And for most companies, I would say 90% of the companies we work with, these are the 4 KPIs that they measure incessantly. I have a board meeting this Friday with a nonprofit up in Vermont, and the entire presentation is going to be these 4 KPIs, because assuming that you can properly measure these, you're able to expand your business, you're able to understand what is and isn't working. Okay, let's put that aside for a quick second. So here we are, we're in the midst of COVID, and I want us to have something to do that doesn't involve advertising spend, that moves our organization forward. For me, it's really SEO. SEO is really what we can have our staff work on internally, whether or not they're technically minded, that draws results. So I'm just gonna throw on a quick example here. What is SEO? So if I Google Boston brewery tours as an example, this map is technically SEO, search engine optimization. What I mean by that is that it is free real estate for you if you want it. So here we have a client of ours, Boston Brewery Tours by City Brew Tours, who's #1 on the map, followed by Sam Adams, followed by Mass Brew. There are no ads right now, and obviously there are no ads. There are usually ads because you can't have brewery tours in Boston because of this thing called COVID. But this actually has a lot of value. And so we're going to be talking about how to quantify that value, how to set these things up, and how to kind of make it work for your organization. As we scroll down a little bit more, we'll see what we refer to as organic listings. Again, still SEO, still for free. So here City Brew Tours is showing up twice, and then we get Sam Adams, and then we get the rest. If we change our search and go, how to go on a brewery tour, we might get different search results. Again, we still have City Brew Tours, but as we scroll down right here, you see these people also ask, also SEO. So all of this is also free if we want it. And we'll be talking today about how we actually get it. For us, we could think about best nonprofits in Boston, right? So another search that a user might make. Again, we have a map. This is free if we set it up properly. We have the Google Map Pack, again, free SEO. And then we have a bunch of just listings. We have a bunch of questions that people are asking. And so when we think about the value of this, we want to ultimately have a good understanding of where people are actually going and clicking. So this is just this is like a saved screenshot of like best refrigerator to buy. You can see up top here, if you can see right at the top, you can see a bunch of the ads. So these are examples of every person clicking, more or less, right? So like 50 people clicking, plus or minus, and so we have some action on the ads. As we scroll down, we have a featured snippet. Again, this is SEO, this is free. If we build our website and write content in the appropriate way. Under people also ask, those are the questions that we talked about again. And then we have organic results. So huge opportunity here, right? For us to be able to move the needle forward. And so given the fact that organic results are up for grabs, people also ask, like literally it's so overlooked. And the featured snippet might be a little bit more aggressive. We have an opportunity putting aside ads to dominate this. And I'll be showing you how to do that today. We can jump on people also ask as an interesting example. So if I go back here, let's see if I still had it up. Yep. So what Google, has anyone ever tried to like write anything into Google and it tries to fill it in for you? Google's whole objective is to feed users the best possible results. So what it's doing is it's looking at questions people are asking frequently, and it's scouring the internet looking for people who are answering that question. Well, there is an easier way to come up with these questions. Well, there's two ways. First of all, I always say, anytime anyone asks you and your organization any questions, we want to write that down. So whether you're a brewery tour or you're, a hospital or you're a nonprofit, whatever it is if anyone's asking you questions, we should be writing them down and we should be answering them so that if other people search for those questions online, they can get found. But there's also a little bit of a cheat. There's a service called Answer the Public. And so if I Google, I don't know, Iceland, as an example. I was literally just emailing with an Icelandic friend of mine last night. What this does is it pulls all of the questions, and this is like the free little search, pulls all the questions that are being answered in relation to Iceland. So when to go to Iceland, how to travel to Iceland, fish, pulls all the questions people are asking. If we ask about like nonprofits or how to donate to nonprofits or nonprofits in your area, it will literally answer all of the questions associated with that domain. So give you a few ideas on what to write. And these are just blog posts. So you write blog posts, you answer the questions, they get indexed properly, and you're off to the races. The map pack is a little different. Again, if you all this stuff takes like a few minutes here. The map pack is generally run by something called Google My Business. So this is a summer camp, Camp Cody in New Hampshire. So if I Google like New Hampshire summer camps, let's see what comes up. So you can see Camp Cody right here on the map pack, right? And let's see if they also make it up and right here in the organic results, right? So we're taking 2 spots out of the top here. How did we show up as one of the top camps in the map pack when there are like 75, 80 camps in New Hampshire? Well, we're the only ones to take the time to like just go to our Google My Business page and just start filling this stuff out. What's the value of that? Actually tremendously high. So in the last month, we appeared in 7,400 searches as a result of that map pack. Now, when you consider, so in the summer camp world, like Camp Cody probably pays $2 a click, this has a lot of value, which we're otherwise getting for free. And actually, so Camp Cody, so that's actually, I bought this summer camp basically on a bankruptcy in 2010, 2011. It was not doing too well. And you'll see, like, I just started like measuring all of these KPIs. So like the first full summer, I spent $10,000 on marketing. We had 238 leads. And it got to a point in 2017 where I was spending $250,000 on advertising to get 1,600 leads. And then something pretty incredible happened in 2018. We dropped the advertising by half, and yet we came close to tripling the number of inquiries. And what happened there, actually, this is kind of full circle here. What happened is that the web to lead conversion rate quadrupled. And so what that let us do is essentially spend less and get more. That's why people redesign websites. Ultimately, if you're redesigning a website, almost all like for-profit businesses are doing it for this KPI, because we generally can't control our cost per visitor, because we're oftentimes buying that from Google or Facebook or whoever. We oftentimes can't control our lead to sale or our lifetime value. That's probably inherent in our business model. And so the biggest variable, the biggest lever you can pull is the web to lead conversion rate. Okay, I'm a little off topic, so we can get into it. Today, I wanna talk about what the value of appearing on the first page is, how to do it, and ultimately how to teach yourself all this stuff so you can action it moving forwardly. And admittedly, I'm not showing you anything unique here, and I'm going to be teeing you up with all the resources for you to kind of teach yourself as we move forward. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. The first page of Google really matters, whether it's an ad or a map pack or people also ask or a featured snippet. And it matters because the chances of someone actually clicking on your business are dramatically higher if we're positions 1 through 10. So first 10 results on a search page, as opposed to page 2 or 3 or let alone page 9. And you can kind of see, like, if we're not on the first page, we kind of have issues across the board. And you can see it's even, if we look even closer on the first page of Google, being in the top 4 or 5 spots is just incredibly, incredibly important for a variety of reasons. This is a fun one. When there's a survey last year through, I think it was SEMrush, on which platforms which channels were the top performing. The number one, and you can multi-select here, but the number one was organic search, so SEO. And a lot of people are seeing this for a few reasons. Number one, let's take a look at the next performing channels. Paid search. Depending on which market you're in, you've probably seen your costs on Google Ads on social increase probably 10 or 15% a year. So what you were spending, using our silly summer camp example, 10 years ago, I was spending $1 per click. Now I'm spending $4 or $5 for the same market. So very expensive. Email marketing, people are using email and email less and less. We're getting flooded with it. A lot of the email servers are like learning how to actually like protect you against email. So that's becoming a little bit less functional. Content marketing is great, but it takes a lot of effort. Again, organic is free, it's easy, and it's a relatively long-term payoff. Other cool little stats here. The first 3 placements on Google get 75% of the clicks. The structure of the site matters dramatically. So the Similarity Index will basically affect whether or not you're appearing as high as you want. I'll give you an example. If we go back to the Boston Brewery Tours, so let's go to like Boston Brewery Tours, and we take a look at the City Brew Tours website. So the URL structure really, really, really closely aligns with what keywords we want to appear for. And you can see that even on the other one, on our homepage, we're filtering the keywords that we want to appear for throughout the URL structure and throughout the page. Like a silly little example again is like West Virginia retreat centers. I have a friend who has a retreat center in West Virginia, and he doesn't have any business, or he didn't. And so, one evening, I just bought westvirginiaretreatcenters.com and threw it up on a Squarespace site, and I just created Google My Business listing for him. And he runs a retreat center, but he never really ran it that well, in the sense they never marketed it. And now when you look for retreat centers in West Virginia, literally we're the number 1 on that pack, and we're the number 2 organically. So having a URL structure that aligns with what people are actually searching is tremendously valuable. It'll allow you to like skyrocket to the top of a page. All right, let's continue. Organic click-through rates of question titles versus non-question titles. Google loves lists and Google loves questions. So like, what are the best national parks? Question mark. Chances are, yeah, look at the first ones, list. They love giving you lists of things. So when we're writing our content, or when we're blogging, or when we're producing our website, the more that we can match what people are searching, which is often questions, and do it in such a format that is a list, will dramatically increase our ability to actually rank. So even though this is like it looks like a blog post from 2017, so all they've done is they've just added numbers. But Google's algorithm really enjoys that, and as a result, now rewards them with a top placement on page 1 of Google. Kind of cool. Power words in title tags were correlated with a lower click-through rate. So power words can sometimes be like best, worst. Google is sometimes diminishing those. So just answer it, as honestly as you can without necessarily filling that up. And then, emotion and sentiment is a little close, but I thought it was kind of interesting to look at how Google's rewarding sentiment as opposed to neutrality. It's kind of interesting. So why is SEO particularly relevant today? Well, it turns out as a result of COVID, the search algorithms are dramatically different than they were 6 months ago. So what does that mean specifically? It means that there are more people being unseated off the page one of Google than there more or less ever have been before. And that's an opportunity for us to take that from them and then ultimately, experience more traffic, more visibility, et cetera. So we're in a little bit of like a unique period of time where there is more volatility now than there ever has been. There's also a tool I thought I'd just reference real quick. It can sometimes be nice to figure out where you want to focus your attention from like a search term perspective on Google. It's called Google Trends, trends.google.com. It essentially lets you figure out what people are searching for, whether nationally or by region, by state, by town. So what I've done here, for example, is I'm looking at the entire United States, and I'm measuring the number of people who are searching restaurant reservations versus takeout near me, right? And so like this is pretty obvious, right? Like you have COVID, and so people are making less reservations and they're ordering takeout more often, but there are likely peaks depending on city. So if I look at New York, it might be slightly different than if I look at Texas. You might also see the terms that are what we call like breakouts. So terms that are increasing by over 1,000% per month. And this would help us essentially get like other ideas on how to market our organization. So for example, if we wanted to, I don't know, this is too general, obviously, you each have like industries that you're focusing, but if we could look at, how people are searching for the term nonprofits, pretty stable. And you can see what people, COVID grants for nonprofits, PPP for nonprofits, SBA loans for nonprofits. So that might actually just be us. That might be our industry. And this is what we are probably plugging into Google and what we're searching. It's kind of neat. So I'll run through a few just like quick examples here. Like one fun one is like Zoom, like wasn't on our consciousness, and now it's really on our consciousness, and then declined, and then they had an IPO. We can look at like grocery delivery, summer camp, airlines. You can try to predict airlines, but ultimately it comes down to trying to figure out what people are actually interested in. When we think about terms that we want to target, we want to find interest, so volume. We want to find terms that actually have value for us and ultimately have low competition. You can think of it as like 3 concentric circles between like competition, value for us, and actual user volume. And what we want is we want an overlap between the volume and value for us. And we'll get into that in a few seconds when we look at SpyFu. A few others, Miami hotels, things to do near me. It allows you to really look at what people are, for example, people are looking for things to do near them more than they ever have before. Okay, for the next kind of segment here, I want to use Paris Perfect as an example here, just kind of as a lens for us. So Paris Perfect is think of them as an Airbnb in Europe. And there's a tool that I'm going to kind of walk through today that I'm going to like show like how I would audit Paris Perfect so that you could open up SpyFu. It's free. They have a free version, and you can kind of turn this lens back on yourself to see where you might have successes or areas where you may need to improve. One of the things I really like with SpyFu is the way in which they lay out their content. And I'll plug in a different company really quick, actually. We were just auditing this company this week. So it's called Snap Kitchen. It's like a food delivery service. But I only mention them because it'll show you what they're paying as well, whereas like Paris Perfect won't really show that. So here, what we have here on the main dashboard is we can see that Snap Kitchen, as an example, is indexing for 2,000 keywords. So when we're talking about SEO, we're talking about this right here. So they're showing up on Google for 2,000 keywords, which is giving them 30,000 clicks on average per month, which has a value of $40,000 a month, right? So when we quantify the work that they have done on their SEO, the actual value that they've now produced is a recurring $40,000 worth of value that they would otherwise not have had they not done their SEO. However, you see this right here? See this green line right here? So if you're doing this for yourself, or you're auditing, your own company, you can see that about this time last year, they were getting 150,000 organic clicks from Google, and now they're getting 32,000. So like, that's a bit of a red flag for us all, right? Like, our organic traffic has declined by, what is that, 80%, which has a value. We've lost $120,000 worth of value per month as a result of that. Does that make sense? And so if you're the marketing director for this organization, you might say to yourself, well, I can see that we're buying 1,000 keywords, driving about 15,000 clicks to us a month at a cost of about 40,000. However, we just lost $120,000 a month in free organic traffic. And you can see down here, if you click one of these, where the gains or the losses might be, right? So if I want to search by the number of searches where we've had the most loss, healthy food delivery services. So we went down 12 spots, which means we were on page 1, which means we were number 4. Does that make sense? 16 minus 12. So we were number 4, right on the first page of Google. And then we just declined to number 16, which will dramatically affect the number of clicks we'll actually get a month. So while there are estimated 1.6 thousand people searching that term, because we're now number 16, and we kind of talked about this a little earlier when we thought about ranking distribution, we get such a smaller amount of that traffic, and thus we get less value. So if we go back real quick to Paris Perfect, they tell a little bit more of a complicated story. And I imagine this is going to be more akin to what you're finding if you start really paying attention to your SEO and your organic rank. So Paris Perfect, they're lovely, lovely, lovely people. They're getting about 500,000. This is the dream, by the way, guys. This is the promised land. So here we have an organization called Paris Perfect that is not spending any money on advertising. No Google ads, virtually nothing, right? Virtually no Google ads, virtually no Facebook, virtually no programmatic, virtually no content, no radio, no print, none. How? They very, very, very intentionally from day one wanted to invest in their SEO and their organic traffic. And they did that without kind of jumping on a few of the ads bandwagons, which has value, but is transactional. If I spend $1 on Google ads, the $1 gone, right? There's no value there long term. And so now they're getting $6 million worth of free traffic. And so if we were their competitor trying to start in their market, we would have to spend $6 million just on Google ads to match what they get for free. And in looking at yourself, you can see where you're gaining. You can look at where you're losing. One of the things that I love the most, though, and would highly recommend is what's referred to as a combat analysis. It's kind of cool. So what this is doing is it is showing you what keywords you're overlapping with your competitors. So imagine you're a nonprofit, and you're overlapping with 3 or 4 different other companies. You could see, well, hey, this company, imagine if we were Paris Vacations right now. So Paris Vacations, we have 13 keywords entirely unique to ourselves that Paris Perfect doesn't have. But Paris Perfect has 3,500 keywords that are unique to them that Paris Vacation doesn't have. What I'd want to do as Paris Vacation is go keyword by keyword through Paris Perfect to find the ones with the least amount of competition, that have the most amount of volume and value, and I want to cannibalize that. And likewise, if we were Paris Perfect, we'd want to defend that through proactive SEO. And you can do that using the keyword research tool. So using Paris Perfect as an example, Paris Vacation Rentals, right? So what it'll do is it'll show us how many people are searching it. It'll show us the competition associated with it. It'll show us what our upside will be. Well, if we win that keyword, it would be like making $5 every time someone clicks, because that would be the traffic we'd otherwise have to buy. The other thing that I love about SpyFu, thing I really like, we'll use Snap Kitchen again, just as a quick example here, is their paid research side. So if you are still spending on advertising, it's really nice to plug in your competition and see where their money's going. Oftentimes, because if they're if they're doing things properly, you should be able to see what's working and not working. There's like an old joke we have using the Facebook Ads Manager. I can show you an example, like with this is a travel client of ours. See if it's coming up. I don't want elections. There's a joke that doesn't look like it's working. So normally what you're able to do is you're able to type in, I'll show you with like, it doesn't look like it's actually loading properly. Basically what you're able to see is you're able to see all of your competitors' ads on Facebook. And what you want to do strategically is take a look at the ads that have been running the longest. 9 times out of 10, the ads that are running the longest are actually performing the best. So when we ever take on like a paid social account or a Facebook or Instagram marketing account, we start by looking at all of their competitors' ads to see which ones have been running the longest, with what demographics, going to what landing pages, because we know that's normally the best conversion rate. You can do the same sort of thing on the ad side within SpyFu. So you can literally pull all of their ads, you can pull all of their demographics, you can pull all of their keywords in like a quick second to have everything basically at your fingertips. So I really love SpyFu. I think it's a great tool, and I'd highly recommend using it when trying to like scope out the competition to a degree. We're running a little tight on time. We've got 15 minutes left. So I want to just kind of blow through some of this remaining information. There's a service that taught me how to do all this stuff. It teaches my team how to do all this stuff. It's called Moz, M-O-Z. It is the single best way to teach yourself or your team about SEO, and in some cases paid search. So while like what I'm doing on this session is more or less like referencing like useful tools and techniques, this is the mother load from an educational perspective. And as with everything we've basically shown, there's a free version. So they literally have something called the SEO Learning Center, where a lot of this content lives. They have guides, they have videos, they have lots of different useful resources. So if you're a local nonprofit, for example, that serves a local community, their local SEO checklist is second to none. So a lot of the things that we have talked about, in fact, we spent literally the first half of this conversation talking about this sort of thing, these sort of topics. You can just literally go article by article and just follow their checklists on how to name yourself, how to input your address. So if you, for example, feel uncomfortable with Google My Business or Search Console or SpyFu or any of these third-party services, they will literally just walk you through it article by article. So I'd highly, highly, highly recommend the Learning Center. And if you need to start like a little further back, they have like a beginner's guide to SEO that is, again, the industry standard here. That probably is doing a much better job than I am of explaining the benefits of SEO. And this stuff has become, in COVID, so much more popular, in large part, again, because actual like budgets have dried up for their advertising. Moz also has a paid version, which I like. It's a bit more for like the data nerds like me, I would say. So essentially what you can do is you can track keywords, you can track campaigns, you can do your research. It's expensive, but none of their resources are anything that you'd ever charge for. And a lot of the stuff you can do for free through SpyFu. I like it. It has like a website grader and whatnot. That's helpful. But for me, as I'll tell you in a minute, almost all of this stuff is free, found elsewhere. But the resources section, feel free to email me. I'm happy to send out links to all of this with all my recommendations. I actually pulled a list of the videos I make my team watch. Like if I have a new hire that's green, everything that I make them kind of learn before they'd ever kind of get hired, which I can share as well. You might have heard me mention Search Console there. Whoever's in charge of your marketing, should just be like checking in on this once a month. It should be like one of those like recurring tasks in your calendar that you just check off when you're trying to check things off your list. It has some pretty serious consequences if it's not set up properly. If you feel like for whatever reason your website or your nonprofit isn't being found by one of like the red flags is, if your organization's only getting found by people who already know you or word of mouth referral, go check Search Console. 9 times out of 10, there are errors that are preventing you from being found. In one case, not too long ago, we had a nonprofit who literally had a no index tag, which is basically they were developing the site and they launched it, but the developers forgot to take off like the maintenance mode, like no follow, which basically prevented Google from ever indexing the darn thing. So just add that to your list. That's something that you want to be checking in on a monthly basis. And again, it takes all of 2 seconds. Go to the homepage, make sure there are no errors, and proceed. We talked a little bit earlier about schema. Schema, to just provide a little bit of clarity here, are these like featured snippets, like these boxes that take over the screen. Those are what are referred to as schema. And I'll show you a few examples later on of like what that looks like. You can now do schema through the Google Search Console. So if you want brownie points and extra credit, you can now read in Moz how to set up schema, go into Google Search Console, and you can kind of do everything through there. One other thing I'll leave you with as well, just a nice little tool, is developers.google.com. What this is doing is actually having Google review your website to tell you whether or not it's technically compliant. One of the key aspects of SEO is technical compliance. And this is our score on mobile. This is our score on desktop. 2 really good scores. Paris Perfect, again, a great company. But even our 75, Google's highlighted a few issues. For example, like might be a little slow, maybe a little slow here, and then it'll literally tell you everything that they want you to change so that you can just screenshot this stuff and send it to your developer. So go to Google PageSpeed Insights, plug in your domain, your score. It's nice to have a score like 70% plus. They're sometimes like a little tricky, like you might get a really low score because you've baked in a ton of like JavaScript, which isn't necessarily accurate, but they're generally pretty accurate. Another good example would be GTmetrix, gtmetrix.com. Again, from an SEO perspective, you can write as much content as you want, but if your site is technically flawed, Google will never show it. So before you embark on a big content writing spree to answer questions and build out page structures to match, just make sure, just log on to Google PageSpeed and load up GTmetrix and just make sure that you're checking the boxes from like a technical perspective, because that stuff really matters. Assuming that you've done all that, you get this as a result. So this is actually a client, Austin Adventures, up in Montana, great travel company, good people. They wrote like tons of content all day long for years, and none of it ever really showed up because their website really wasn't that well optimized. And Brian, that gentleman who drives up from Rhode Island, when rebuilding their site, they optimized it. And so all the content began to index more favorably than it ever had before, because Google then woke up and said, oh, this is a nice little website. Again, I guess it's using a strong word like best, but like it's a list format. This is the holy grail of like of trying to get a structured schema snippet. Build in lists, that's huge. Other examples of schema, like this is like a insurance company. Like all this stuff can get really nicely indexed as long as you position it properly. Baking soda in a septic tank, this may seem innocuous. So like I have a septic client and they literally create a list of everything that anyone would ever search as it related to their company so they could get as much traffic as possible. They're like a private equity roll up. And like all of the questions, and regardless of if every septic related question, they're going to try and answer. There is another, like if you're super techie, Google has really nice technical build down on how to do this stuff, how to show up for all of this. So like when you search for a recipe, for example, how do the recipes show up there? All they're doing is like following Google's own data schema. So after you've read Moz and after you've done some research on SpyFu and Answer the Public and checked all those boxes, if you really want to dig hard into structured data, Google provides all of this information for you, and I'll email all this out as well, so that you can, if you really want to make a play at the featured snippets. One last, also free thing I just wanted to show you was Hotjar. Sometimes, especially with nonprofits, people might have some pre-built assumptions on how people actually use the website that may differ from reality. This is, I can tell you I did. So this is my summer camp website. I thought people would behave in a particular way, and they don't always behave in that way. And so what Hotjar allows you to do is it literally allows you to watch people using your website. And so this is a person who is literally using the website. You can see their mouse. So they're trying to click there and failing. So this user's on for like 30 minutes, and it seems like they go dark for like a half an hour or like for 5 minutes. And then it looks like they come back, and there's the chat box, which they're not interested in, it seems like. I would highly suggest just installing Hotjar and getting a read for how people are actually using your website. So when you're thinking about changing copy or site structure or whatever it is, there they are trying to click, wow, literally trying to click the text again. I'm not sure if they wanted to go to the page and, oh, we're chatting again, let's see what happens now. Oh, they go dark. It's a pretty cool tool for actually understanding how people use your site. And I always find a lot of value for it. And we've changed our content, we've changed our SEO strategy, we've changed our landing page. We have built a lot as a result. This is actually a funny example. So this is a parent going to our staff section. And what was interesting is we then realized that a lot of parents would actually look at what we were saying to our staff before they would send their children to camp, which is kind of interesting. Power Mapper is another cool tool. If you're worried about WCAG compliance and accessibility, which you probably should be because businesses are being sued over accessibility now, Power Mapper is another great and free service that will basically help you become compliant, WCAG compliant. It will literally just grade your site. So if you want to avoid all that headache and you want to be proactive about having a website that also has accessibility, Power Mapper is a great free tool that will allow you to figure out your issues. Again, this helps from an SEO perspective because Google also wants you to have a good website that's compliant. So checking off these boxes helps across the board. I'm coming to the end. I had like some more. I feel like I'm going too quickly. The last thing I'll just say my last few minutes here while I have you guys is the following. Let me just turn off this little clicking noise, if I may. See this parents like clicking like crazy. I was like, what is that clicking noise? When we talked earlier about like Google Analytics, and we've talked about like understanding the drivers of your business and the KPIs, you can see, for example, this is more or less last summer at my camp. You can see I'm paying to play, very atypical. So the #1 source of my traffic is Google Ads. This is that $1.25 a year on Google Ads. And you can see overall my conversion rate, or the rate at which I convert new users to leads, is about 4%. The industry average is like 2.5. And so you can see the number of like interactions I had as a result of my Google Ads campaign, how many I got for free as a result of my organic campaign. So even though I had less free organic traffic, less than paid, it actually converts at a higher percentage than paid. It spends nearly twice as much time on site, nearly twice as many pages. What's interesting about Facebook, and if you look down at the Facebook advertising, there are three, just real quick, there are 3 ways to advertise on Facebook. 2 of them involve lighting your money on fire. You can boost a post, never boost a post. You can want to target all the women in New Hampshire, never do that. All you want to do is custom audience-based remarketing, which is what this is, building lists and then converting against them. So here you have only 4,000 users from Facebook, but a conversion rate of 5%. But what I wanted to show you as one last little note is if I take a look at my conversion paths. So if I take a look at where all of my campers came from, so these are all of my registered campers, 1,100 of them. So if I want to take a look at where how I got all of my sales, so each one of these represents a sale. Green represents organic traffic. So anytime that you see green here, that's SEO playing a role, especially when it comes to first touch attribution. So you can see, like, for example, these are all, more or less cost $4,000 or $5,000 to come to camp. So these are all individual campers who are registered as a result of us purchasing email lists. So it's pretty good to ascribe value. So we spent so much on email lists, and we're able to see each camper that we get. Direct is almost always word of mouth. Paid is obviously Google Ads. And so, here we have 150 registrations that simply followed the path organic to direct. So SEO plays just a massive role in all of this. But I'll hush up now. It's 11:45, and I want to be good for everybody. If you have any interest, I'm happy to share all these materials. If you have any questions, I'm happy to help. And I think we have some time set aside right now just to kind of walk through any, top of the mind issues.
Thank you so much, Peter. I was actually working on some of the things that you were talking about on some of my interests. So thank you for lighting a little fire under my tail.
It's honestly crazy what you can do. So like just using my silly summer camp business, like I bought it at less than $1 million in revenue. We're going to be doing probably 10 million in revenue next year. And now you can see the vast driver is I had to pay to play to get it started, and then I got to wean off of it, and now I'm riding the organic, wave. And now's the best time to do that because you'll never have it. I can't remember another time with more volatility and people having more time on their hands to put towards this stuff. So I'm ranting, so I'll hush up.
No, that's all right. So Sarah asks, why should we not boost a Facebook post?
Oh yeah, so this is like my opinion. And so like we have Google back pre-COVID, we'd have Google and Facebook coming into our offices on a weekly basis to like sell all their new features. And this may just be my bent on things, but generally speaking, anything that's easy to do on Facebook or Google Ads is generally not something you want to do because you pay a price for that ease. And what the price is sophistication of targeting and tracking and attribution. We would never boost because the targeting on it is there's virtually very few limitations on Facebook. What that means is Facebook gets to spread your money wherever they really want it. And if you look at your bounce rates, if you look at your conversion rates, they're pretty miserable. The second way of advertising on Facebook is to say, I want to find, we have a tequila client that's coming on board today, and they want to find Spanish-speaking tequila drinkers. It's not really a great way to do it either, because we're talking in Texas, hundreds of thousands of people. The way to advertise on Facebook is to do what's called like custom audience remarketing lists. So Facebook has a pixel that you'd install on your website. Sarah, I'm not sure if you know what that is or you've used the pixel before, but the pixel will essentially allow you to capture and cookie all of the individuals who have been to your website. So it is much more cost effective to look at people who've been to your site, who haven't bounced, but who haven't like clicked through to your call to action, who haven't subscribed or donated. It's much easier to isolate those users and market to them than it is to just boost. And if you did want to like build awareness outside of people who've already interacted with your brand, you then want to look to like using those custom audiences who are super high value, and then basically prospecting off of them as opposed to boosting. Boosting is just, it's sort of like Google had they call it Ads Express. So there's like AdWords, and then there was like Ads Express for business owners to like maintain their ads on their phones. And it was just like it's not, using the word scam is not correct, but like you did not get the value for your money that you would if you had been a bit more sophisticated in the targeting. I hope that answered your question. Cool.
Classic COVID. I was on mute.
No worries.
Another Sarah says, wow, I could listen to this all day. Can you address Susie's issue around being sued for website accessibility compliance?
Yeah, you need, so like it's very, maybe the word very serious is not. So we've had multiple, half of our team builds websites, half of our team does marketing. And I would say probably, don't quote me on this, it's recorded, so I guess I'm being quoted. I would say probably 20% of our clients have gotten shaken down for accessibility. I mean, we for context, like we helped build a portion of REI's website. So like design and build, and we did a lot of like the compliance testing on it. Big companies like that, you are surely in the crosshairs. If you are taking any federal money though, in any way, shape or form, any grants, you are unfortunately, there are attorneys who literally just do this for a living, who literally just find people who are taking government grants and go after them. So if you're in a situation where you're taking government or state money and they mandate sort of accessibility compliance, WCAG compliance, you need to I mean, it's small money, like it's a couple grand, but you need to, if you're building a new site or you're maintaining a site, go to whoever's doing it for you and make sure that it checks the boxes.
All right, good to know. Any other questions that we have out there before we let this big brain go?
I don't know about big brain. I feel badly. Like I was telling Randy earlier that I watched the debate last night and it gave me anxiety, and I had a glass of wine, and I like never drink. I drink like once a year. And so I've had like 4 cups of coffee to get rid of my hangover this morning. So I might be running a little faster than I normally would. If you have questions and comments and thoughts, you are going to have questions and comments and thoughts, because I just went over like a crazy amount of information in a tiny little short period of time. I'm sure Randy can send out my contact info, or you can come to my website.
So we're going to be doing a follow-up email with the recording. We'll also include, if Peter, if you wanted to send that a spreadsheet or anything along, we would include that. And just so you know, we also share attendee information with Peter so that he knows what questions you may have asked or any thoughts that you may have had around this. So I guess, thank you so much, Peter, for your time today. I've really gotten a lot out of this, and I appreciate this, and it's renewed my, I better check on this stuff again.
It's kind of fun. Like this is definitely like 45 minutes of like a little bit of nerd hour today. Like I'll admit it, I'm a little bit of a nerd. So yeah, huge opportunities. Oh, we got one more. Oh, thanks, Tiffany. Appreciate it. I'm here if you need anything. I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their day. Appreciate it, Randy.
Yeah, thank you all for attending, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Cheers.